Shabbat Shalom, everybody, and good Shabbos. I want to say it was a beautiful day, but it was kind of rainy and overcast. But for the day after Thanksgiving, when we're just kind of lying about, recovering from all the food we ate, it was a pretty nice day. A little bit overcast and chilly, but for late fall, still beautiful, still beautiful. But it's Shabbat, so regardless of the weather, we are together, albeit virtually, but we're together and for the Shabbat after Thanksgiving. So we are going to begin as usual with the candles, and I have Sam here this evening. And if you want to follow along, you'll find the bracha, the blessing, on page 2, and Sam does a reading on page 3.
O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives. Bless all who enter this sanctuary in need, all who bring the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahalit ner shel Shabbat.
Amen. Thank you, Sam. Sure. All right, we're going to mix things up this evening. We're going to begin on page 9 for the reading that brings us into Shabbat as we begin Kabbalat Shabbat, welcoming Shabbat. Top of page 9, and let's read it responsively. There are days when we seek things for ourselves and measure failure by what we do not gain.
On Shabbat, we seek not to acquire, but to share.
There are days when we exploit nature as if it were a horn of plenty that can never be exhausted.
On Shabbat, we stand in wonder before the mystery of creation.
There are days when we act as if we cared nothing for the rights of others.
On Shabbat, we remember that justice is our duty and a better world our goal.
So we embrace Shabbat, a day of rest, day of wonder, day of peace. All right, let's continue with Lecha Dodi, song that the mystics in Sfat would sing right about this time of day as the sun was setting over the hills in the Galil. They would come out dressed in white, white being the color of purity for Shabbat, and they would sing this song welcoming the Shabbos bride. And we're going to begin this evening on page 20, verses 1, 2, 8, and 9. Lecha Dodi. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nikabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad, Ishmi'anu el hamyuchad, Adonai echad u'shmo echad, L'shem tiferet v'litchila, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nikabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, Ki mekor habracha, Merosh mikedem nesucha, Sof ma'aseh b'machshava techila, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nikabela. Yamin u'smol tifrotzi, V'et Adonai taharitzi, Al yahadish ben partzi, V'nismecha v'nagila, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nikabela. Boi v'shalom ateret bala, gam b'simcha uv'tola, toch emunei am segula. Boi chala, lecha dodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat nikabela. Let's turn to page 22, and let's read in English together a psalm, a song for Shabbat. It is good to praise Adonai, to sing your hymns to your name, O Most High, to proclaim your steadfast love at daybreak, your faithfulness each night. With a 10-stringed harp, with voice and lyre together, you have gladdened me by your deeds, Adonai. I shout for joy at your handiwork. How great are your works, Adonai, how very subtle your designs. A brute cannot know, a fool cannot understand this. Let's continue in the Hebrew at the indented lines. Tzadikata hama yifrach, ke'erez balvanon yiskeshetulim, beveit Adonai, bechatzrot Eloheinu yafrichu. O yenuvun b'seva, Deshemim vera'ananim yiyu lehayi, ki ashar Adonai tzuri velo avlatabo. And on page 24, we'll close out Kabbalat Shabbat, closing out our easing into Shabbat after this week with Shalom Aleichem, page 24. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaSharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem LeShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu Ni LeShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzeitchem LeShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Going to begin the Arvit, the evening service for Shabbat. You'll find Chatzi Kaddish, the transition between Kabbalat Shabbat and Arvit, on page 145. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, ve'alma divrach Yerutei v'yamlik malchutei, v'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael. Bahagala, u'v'zman kahariv, v'yimeru, amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevorach, Leolam Lo Me'amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudisha brichu leila min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata daham mihiran b'yalma v'yimiru amen. We are on page 146 for the Baruch Hu, the formal call to evening worship. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Let's read responsively on page 147 near the bottom. Adonai, your majesty is proclaimed by the marvels of earth and sky. Sun, moon, and stars testify to your power and wisdom.
Day always day in endless succession, and the years vanish, but your sovereignty endures.
Though all things pass, let not your glory depart from us. Help us to become co-workers with you and endow our fleeting days with abiding worth. Baruch atah Adonai Hama'ariv Aravim. Top of page 148, Ahavat Olam. Ahavat Olam Beit Yisrael Amcha Ahavta Torah u'mitzvot Chukim u'mishpatim Otanu limadeta Al kein Adonai Eloheinu B'shochbeinu uvkumeinu Nasiach bechukecha V'nismach b'divrei Toratecha Uv'mitzvotecha Li'olam va'ed Ki heim chayenu v'orech yameinu v'orech yameinu Uvahem nehege yomam v'layla yomam v'layla V'ahavatcha tasir mimenu li'olamim Baruch atah Adonai ohev amo Yisrael Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol meodecha ve'hayu advarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha Hayom ha'levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha uvlektecha v'derech uv'shokbecha uvkumecha ukshartam leot al yadecha v'hayu latotafot beineinecha uchtavtam Al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha leman tiskeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'hitem kedoshim le'Elohechem Ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'Elohim Ani Adonai Elohechem. On page 151, let's read responsively in the middle. We worship the power that unites the universe, a promise of harmony for all.
Yet that oneness eludes our grasp as imperfection and evil abound.
Before our eyes, there is a vision of perfection, order, and goodness.
There is evil enough to break the heart, and there is good enough to exalt the soul.
When will redemption come?
When we grant everyone what we claim for ourselves.
Long ago, we escaped the tyranny of Egypt. Our people saw the power of the Most High.
We learn God's presence redeems time and event, so we celebrate this power that makes for freedom.
Top of page 152, Mi Chamocha. Mi Chamocha, Ba'elim Adonai. Mi Kamocha, Nedar Ba'kodesh. Nohora Tehilot, Ohosei Fele. Malchutecha Ra'u Vanecha. Bokeyam Lifnei Moshe. Ze Eli Hanu V'Amru. Adonai yimloch leolam vahed, v'ne'emar kifad Adonai et Yaakov, u'ga'alo mi'et chazak mimenu, baruch atah Adonai, ga'al Yisrael. On to page 153, at the top, the first two lines of Hashkivenu. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom v'ha'amidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom v'ha'amidenu shomreinu l'chaim. And let's read together in the English. Give us a place to rest, O God. Shelter us in the long, soft evening shadows of your truth. You are true protection and safety. In your presence we find love and acceptance. Watch over us as we go forth. Prepare us as we return. Spread over us your shelter of peace, over all we love, over our Jerusalem and yours. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu, v'al kol amo Yisrael, v'al Yerushalayim. Page 154 at the top, Vishamru. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat, L'dorotam berit olam, v'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat, l'dorotam berit olam. Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael, Oti leolam, v'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat, l'dorotam berit olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim v'et ha'aret, v'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat, l'dorotam berit olam. Uvayom hashvi'i shavat vayinafash, shavat vayinafash, v'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat, l'dorotam berit olam. We're now at the Amidah, the central prayer for the evening service, and we're going to begin on page 155, 156, and 157, which we'll chant together, and then we'll continue silently 158 through the end on 167, and you can follow along in the Hebrew, read the English, or offer up your own prayer at this time. Adonai sifatai tiftachu fi yagi tehilatecha,
Adonai sifatai tiftach, ufi yagib tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor, Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei HaKol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot V'imahot, U'mevi Goel Livnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo B'Ahava, Melech Ozer Moshiach U'Magin, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magin Avraham, V'Ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechaye Metim Atarav Lehoshia, Mashiv HaRuach, U'Morid HaGashem, Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed, Mechaye Metim Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Verofech Oholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato, Lishenei Afar, Michamocha Bal Givurot, Umidom Melach, Melech Meimit Umechayeh, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'neman Atal HaChayot Metim, Baruch Atah Adonai, Mechayeh HaMetim.
All right, let's continue on page 160. We'll read together in the middle. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy, our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may we all live in such a way that this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh HaShabbat. And on page 163 at the top, a little bit of gratitude, a little hoda'ah. Hakarat HaTov, recognizing the good. And let's read responsively. For the good in us, which calls us to a better life, we give thanks.
For the strength to improve the world with our hearts and our hands, we offer praise.
For the desire in us, which leads us to work for peace, we are grateful.
For life and nature, harmony and beauty, for the hope of tomorrow, all praise to the source of being.
And on the top of page 164, we'll close out the Amidah with the prayer for peace, Shalom Rav. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Hamcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Hamcha Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rahav al Yisrael Hamcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rahav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov benecha levarech et Amcha Yisrael bechol עת ובכל שעה Bishlomecha. Shalom Rahav al Yisrael Hamcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rahav al Yisrael Hamcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. And let's read responsively in the middle of the page. Grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Bless our country as a safeguard of peace, its advocate among the nations. May contentment reign within our borders, health and happiness within our homes.
Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among all the inhabitants of our world. Plant virtue in every soul, and may the love of your name hallow every home and every heart.
Praised are you, Adonai, who blesses your people Israel with peace. Baruch atah Adonai, hamivarech et amo Yisrael, b'shalom. All right, we're going to continue with the Mishaberach, the prayer for those who are ill, and you'll find the middle of page 253. And if you have anybody who needs a little bit of extra healing on this Shabbat, whether it's a physical healing, an emotional healing, or a spiritual healing, keep them close to your heart and in your thoughts as we continue with Mishaberach in the middle of page 253. Mishaberach Avoteinu Mikor habracha Le'imotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishaberach Imotenu Mikor habracha Le'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Let's continue with prayers for our community, for our congregation, our country, and the state of Israel on page 258 and 259, and let's read them together. Source of all being, may the children of this community learn these passions from us, love of Torah, devotion in prayer, and support of the needy. May we guide with integrity, and may our leadership be in your service. May those who teach and nourish us be blessed with satisfaction, and may we appreciate their time and their devotion. Bless us with the fruits of wisdom and understanding, and may our efforts bring fulfillment and joy. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otecha levadcha b'yirah na'avod. Thus says Adonai, this is what I desire, to unlock the fetters of wickedness and untie the cords of lawlessness, to let the oppressed go free, to break off every yoke. Share your bread with the hungry and take the wretched poor into your home. When you see the naked, give clothing and do not ignore your own kin. If you banish the yoke from your midst, the menacing hand, the evil speech, if you offer compassion to the hungry and satisfy the famished creature, then your light shall shine in darkness. Avinu Shabashamayim, Tzur Yisrael v'Goalo, Barech et Medinat Yisrael, Reshit Smichat Gulatenu. Hagen Aleha Biavrat Chastecha, Ufros Aleha Sukat Shlomecha, Ushlach Oracha v'Amitecha l'Rasheha, Sareha v'Yoetzeha. V'tachneim be'etza tova milfanecha, v'natata shalom ba'aretz, v'simchat olam liyoshveha, v'nomar, Amen. O Heavenly One, Protector and Redeemer of Israel, bless the state of Israel, which marks the dawning of hope for all who seek peace. Shield it beneath the wings of your love, spread over it the canopy of your peace. Send your light and truth to all who lead and advise, guiding them with your good counsel. Establish peace in the land and fullness of joy for all who dwell there. Amen. All right, friends, Shabbat Shalom and good Shabbos. This week's Torah portion is Vayetze, and we're going to focus on Yaakov for the next couple of parshiot. All right, we've gone past the story of Abraham. Isaac, Yitzchak is an old man, and he's getting ready to leave the scene. So now we're going to focus on Yaakov. And he's leaving Be'er-sheva. He's leaving where his family is located for Haran. He's going back to his mother's homeland. You got to remember, last week he tricked Esav out of his blessing, out of the blessing that was rightfully Esav's. And Esav, in a fit of anger, threatens to kill him. So Rivka says, you better get out of here, go back to where I come from, go back to Haran, and stay with my brother Lavan. And on Yaakov's first night out, he has pretty much, or I won't say pretty much, it was probably the most famous dream in the entire Bible. Although Pharaoh's dreams and the Yosef story are important, but this dream is the latter, whereas he's nearing the border between the land of Canaan and outside of Canaan, he falls asleep and he dreams that there's a ladder with going up and coming down, and going up are angels and coming down are angels, and at the very, very top of the ladder is God. And God says to Yaakov that his descendants will be blessed. And Yaakov gets up in the morning and he says, God was in this place and I did not know it. And he takes the rock and he consecrates it with oil and makes it into a sacred place. He arrives in Haran and he meets his uncle Lavan, but he also meets Lavan's two daughters, Rachel, and Leah. And he is immediately smitten by Rachel. And Lavan says, oh, you want to marry Rachel? Well, if you work 7 years for her, I will give you her hand in marriage. And so Yaakov agrees, and they make a wedding. And there's a little bit of shenanigans that goes on. It's decided that instead of sending Rachel to the marriage bed, they're going to send Leah. Well, actually, he's going to marry off Leah to Yaakov, pull a fast one on him. And so it's not until the next morning that Yaakov realizes that he's married to the wrong woman. Leah was older, and Lavan felt that it would be bad to marry off the younger daughter before the older daughter, so they do this. Yaakov, of course, is incensed. Lavan says, work another 7 years, and you can have Rachel again. And so he promises to work now 14 years. And, he's kind of prolific when it comes to having children. He's got 2 wives, and he has 2 maidservants. And with those 4 women, he fathers, at least in this week's Parsha, 12 children, right? And 11 of them will go on to, or 11 of them, the males will be part of the tribes of Israel. There's one son who won't be born this week. He'll be born next week. But with Leah, now this is the wife that he doesn't really love. Every time he looks at her, it seems, she's with child. And she gives birth to Ruvain, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, Zevulun, and the only daughter that's named for the patriarchs, Dinah. And she'll figure prominently next week. With Bilhah, one of his maidservants, he has the son Dan and Naphtali. With Zilpah, the other maidservant, he has Gad and Asher. And then with Rachel, in this week, he has one son, and that son's name is Yosef. Right? So there's a lot going on in the years that he's working with for Lavan. And then after these many, many years that he's worked for Lavan, over 20 years he works for him. Maybe it's around 20. If you figure out all of the time before and after, he decides he wants to return home. He wants to take the trip back to where his mother and his father are. And so he and Lavan decide that the only right thing to do is to divide the flocks, right? Divide the flocks in half. And Yaakov says, you know what? I'll take the ones that are spotted and speckled out of the sheep and the goats. And through some machinations of placing them underneath trees, the spotted and speckled goats are more prolific than the rest of the herds. And so it looks like Yaakov is getting the lion's share. And he's accused of cheating, which should come as no surprise if you've been reading the Parshiot during the week. Yaakov isn't beyond a little bit of cheating sometimes, and neither is Lavan. I mean, Lavan is the king of the cheaters in the Torah. And so he decides he's going to run. Now, this is a trope for Yaakov, right? We see this happening. Yaakov gets himself into hot water, he runs. Yaakov gets himself with his brother, he runs. Yaakov gets himself into some hot water with Lavan, he runs. Right? So maybe the name Yaakov, which means heel, is very fitting for him right now because he's always on his heels running away from trouble that he caused. And Lavan chases after him. He doesn't like the fact that Yaakov left literally in the middle of the night with all of his belongings. And he accuses him of theft. Now, it's interesting. He doesn't accuse him of theft of the animals. But before she left, Rachel takes one of Lavan's idols with her as a token of, because she knows she's never going to see her family again. So she takes one of the household idols and sticks it under the saddle of her camel and doesn't tell anybody. But Lavan notices that it's missing, and he chases after them and he gets them. And Yaakov, who doesn't know anything about this stolen idol, thinks it's Lavan pushing his buttons again. And so Yaakov explodes and says, "Nobody, how dare you? Who do you think you are? Anybody who has stolen this idol, they will die on the side of the road." Meanwhile, his favorite wife, Rachel, is sitting on a stolen idol. And There'll be more about that. These words have consequences. But at the end, they reconcile their differences, and Yaakov continues on his way back to his home. And so that's this week's Torah portion in a nutshell. So the past couple of weeks, I've been reading the news and trying not to read the news because of all of the back and forth going on with the election. And I listen to people and I hear arguments, and on Facebook, you're either for me or against me. I mean, we've become a very, very polarized society. And so I was looking for some things that were not necessarily political to while away my time online to see what I could find. And I went to a website that I like. It's called Keshet. And it's a group working for the full inclusion of the LGBTQ for the inclusion of LGBTQ Jews in all facets of Jewish life. Right? So they're working from the most secular Jews all the way up to trying to talk with the most Orthodox Jews about how they can include LGBTQ people. And they came up with 7 Jewish values, 7 key values in our tradition that are guidelines for an inclusive Jewish community. And as I was reading them and as I was thinking about it, these 7 values aren't just for inclusion of the LGBTQ community. These are 7 core values that synagogues, that the Jewish communities really should represent. And so for the next several weeks, I want to go through some of these values and see if there are ways that, we could put them into use in our community, put them into use in our daily lives, and hopefully to diffuse some of the, you're either for me or against me. If you don't agree with what I say, you're bad, you're evil, and see if we can break through that kind of rhetoric and really understand that, we're human beings, we're in this together, and that we have more in common than what separates us. So the first of the key values is one that we talked a little bit about when we did the Aseret HaDibrot, when we talked about the 10 utterances. And this value is kavod, respect, honor, right? We know it, respect your mother and your father, right? From the Aseret HaDibrot. And kavod is not only just respect for others, but respect for ourselves. That we regard the rights and the dignity and the feelings and the wishes and the abilities of others. We have regard for that. We say, you know what? You are worthy of kavod. You are worthy of being respected simply because you are a human being like I am. Now, I know that there'll be people who will argue that with me, that respect isn't something that's given, it's earned. But we're not talking respect the way we might think about it. We're talking about this ground level kind of understanding that human beings are inherently, intrinsically worthwhile. You don't have to agree with them, but they're worthwhile. The person might be totally antithetical, hold beliefs that are antithetical to yours, but they're still worthy of the respect that you would give a human being. And there's another value that we'll talk about at another time that focuses really in on that. But this is a serious value in Judaism, and it shows up in a number of phrases that we use a lot. Kibud av ve'em, right? Honor your mother and your father. Kivod habriot, and this is that other value, this idea of respecting all of God's creation, that everything is intrinsically, has some intrinsic value. Kavod hamet, before we bury a person, we don't treat the corpse with any disrespect, but we go out of our way to show respect to the body, even though it's no longer holding on to the soul. And then one of my favorites is kibud harav, kavod harav, right? Respect for the rabbi. Now, it's respect for your teachers is basically what it is. When I was in rabbinical school, when teachers would walk into the room, depending on who the teacher was and the standing in the community, we would stand up when the teacher walked into the room. All right, so that's a sign of respect. General respect and very specific respect. Respect for all of creation, and then respect for teachers, a specific. The word, though, kavod, as we know that Hebrew has roots, right? So any word that looks like kavod has something to do with its root, and its root means heavy, kabed. Moshe says that he is heavy of lips. He has heavy lips in the story of when we first meet Moshe and his talk to God. But it means heavy, weighty, that it matters, right? So if something is heavy, it has substance, right? There's something to it. If it has substance, then it must be worth something, right? It's not, a pound of gold. Oh, that's worth something. It's got substance to it. And if something is worth something, then it's worthy of our consideration. And so that's how we get to the idea of respect, right? The idea that that people have substance. There's something to them. We might not see it on first blush, but it's there. Kavod really means, in the essence, in the meaning of respect, it means that we acknowledge that something or someone matters to us, right? That it's important to us. And there's a concept called likvod haShabbat, to honor the Shabbat. And that's why on Shabbat we wear nice clothes, right? We just don't show up. Well, Israel takes it a little bit differently, but you just don't show up in torn T-shirts, or you don't show up in right coming after the gym, right? Coming to services, there's something worthy about coming to services. So we have Shabbat with a little bit of kavod. We eat really nice meals on Shabbat. In Eastern Europe, the only time that they ate meat, and it was usually chicken, was on Shabbat. The rest of the week they scraped by, but on Shabbat people went out of their way to prepare nice meals. And so Shabbat has some weight to it. It's worthy of our respect, and so we do things to show that respect. And so the same too with people. When we honor people, we show them that they have worth by us taking them seriously, by us acknowledging them, and that there's an intrinsic value to what they might say, right? We don't have to agree with it, but there's some value there because the person, the bottom line for us is kavod. The bottom line is respect. And so what I want us to think about is, how can we be aware of the value of people around us, right? How can you, extend kavod to somebody with whom you disagree, right? Rather than calling them names, rather than unfriending them on Facebook, rather than running off and joining a different group where you don't have to hear any opinions that are different than yours, right? How can you treat somebody with respect? How can you get them to respect you? What are the lines of communications that need to be open? Right? We need to have regard for people's feelings, for their dignity, and the differences. And that's key, right? It's the differences that we have to learn how to respect. How do we give regard to that? Because everybody's unique. And there's a beautiful midrash that comes to us from Midrash Rabbah, where it teaches us that when God created human beings, God created us differently. Every human being is different. It's not like God was minting coins and every coin came out the same and every human being came out the same. We're all different. And part of that, the beauty of that difference, the tradition teaches us, is that we have to search out for ways to give people kavod, ways to give people honor. Because if everyone were like me, I'd have no problem extending kavod, because I am a wonderful person and I don't care what anybody else says. I know I'm a wonderful person. But how do I convince others of that? Right? And all the different types of people out there. So kavod is something that we need to work on, the ability to recognize and then to give kavod. We are not minted like coins. We are meant to be different. We are meant to be unique. And therefore, we're worthy of kavod. Shabbat Shalom, everybody, and good Shabbos.
Shabbat Shalom.
All right. Time to go back to the front of the book just briefly. If you want to follow along with Kiddush for the evening, and you'll find that on page 4 and page 5. Vayhi Erev, Vayhi Voker, Yom HaShishi, Vayachulu Hashamayim V'Haaretz, V'Chol Tzivam, Vayachal Elohim Bayom HaShvi'i, Melachto Asher Asa, Vayishbot Bayom HaShvi'i, Mikol Melachto Asher Asa. Vayavarech Elohim et Yom HaShvi'i, Vayikadesh oto, Kivo Shavat Mikol Melachto, Asher bara Elohim la'asot. Savri, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, Borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddeshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho kivanu v'acharta v'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodshecha V'ahava uvratzon inchaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai mekal. Another way that we honor Shabbat, by having Kiddush. We don't have Kiddush during the week unless it's a festival or Shabbat. So there you have it. All right, Aleinu, page 282. 282. The ark is open for Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol lateit gedula liyoser breshit shelo asanu kagoye haratzot velo samanu k'mishpachot hadama shelo sam chelkeinu kahem V'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, va'anachnu korim, u'mishtachavim u'modim, lifnei melech malchei hamlachim, hakadosh baruch hu, shehu noteh shamayim v'yoser haaretz, u'moshav yekaro b'shamayim mimal, Ushchinatu zo, begov he meromi. Hu Eloheinu einod, emet malkeinu efes ulato, kakahatu v'torahato, v'yadata hayom v'hashevota, elevavecha. Ki Adonai hu Elohim, b'shamayim imal, v'al haaretz, mihi tachat ein od. Let's continue together on the top of page 285. Let the time not be distant, O God, when all shall turn to you in love, when corruption and evil shall give way to integrity and goodness, when superstition shall no longer enslave the mind, nor idolatry blind the eye. O may all created in your image become one in spirit and one in friendship, forever united in your service. Then shall your realm be established on earth, and the word of your prophet fulfilled. Adonai will reign forever and ever. V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai lamelech al kol ha'aretz. Bayom hahu, Yeh Adonai echad. Ushemo echad. This week we observed the following yahrzeits: Harry Angel, husband of Doris, father to Candy and Charlotte. Walter E. Wilkins, Al's father. Isidore Bernstein. Victor Winston, husband of Belle, father of Robert. Sharon Greenstein Ivanizuk, Murray Greenstein's sister. Dewey Murphy Sr., Scott's grandfather. Isidore Rosenberg, Michael's father. Peggy Lewis, Walter Jr.'s wife, mother of Debbie and Walter. Samson Finn, Mina Poland's father, grandfather of Ron. Myrtle Friedman, married to Morris. Isidore Glick, David's uncle. Jean Stern, daughter of Walter and Bernice. Arthur Weisberg, Joan's husband. Louise Klein, relative of Ida Strauss. Maxine Schoenfeld Frank. Barbara Shaddles, Steve's mother. May their souls be bound up in the bond of life eternal. May their memories be a blessing to us always, and may they all rest in peace. Mourner's Kaddish can be found on page 294. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlik malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, v'agalau v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach li'olam olamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpahar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shmei dekudisha brichu. Le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbachata v'nechamata da'amiran b'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Well, friends, there you have it. Shabbat Shalom and good Shabbos. Just a couple of quick announcements. Let's see. Tomorrow morning services at 10 a.m. and then on Sunday at 9. And then on Sunday at 3 p.m., you can tune in via Zoom for our Birkat HaBehemot, actually, the blessing of the animals, or the blessing of the beasts, as I like to call it. And usually we do this in person, but because of COVID this year, we can't do it. But a friend of mine who is a minister in New York did his version via Zoom. And so I decided, why not? So tune in, bring your pets, and each one will get a special bracha, a little bit of a blessing. And even if you don't have pets, you can still tune in to say hello to everybody and take a look at everybody's pets and see how pretty and cute and wonderful they are. So that's Sunday at 3. And then Wednesday, the best little Yiddish choir anywhere, and you'll get your Zoom invite for that. And then I think that's it for this week. Sam, any?
Yep,
that's it. Sam says that's it. It must be true. I want to thank Sam and James for being here, and my mom and her partner Cliff are in town, and so it's great having them. So it's shaping up to be an amazing Shabbat. All right, let's close out on page 321 Adon Olam. Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yitzir Nivra Liet Nasa B'chefzo Kol Azai Melech Shemo Nikra V'Acharei Gichlot HaKol Levado Yimlok Nora Vehu Haya Vehu Hoveh Vehu Yeh B'Tifara Vehu Echad V'Ein Sheni Laham Shilo Lahat Bira B'li Reshit B'li Tachlit V'lo Ha'oz V'Hamisra Vehu Eli V'Chai Goali V'Tzor Chevli B'Yetzara Vehu Nisi Umanosli Menat Kosi Biomekra Biahado Afkid Ruchi Bietishan Biahira Vim Ruchi Giviati Adonai Li Velo Ira. All right, before we sign off, let's take a look and see who sent us Shabbat greetings. I feel like a TV show when I was a kid called Romper Room.
Yeah.
Right? And looking into the mirror to see who was tuning in. And we have Patty Ann Malloy, good Shabbos. And Ben Wainblatt, good Shabbos. Melanie Samuels, good Shabbos to all. Well, Brooklyn with Patty Ann and Melanie are well represented. Suzanne Hartz, Shabbat Shalom. Jenny Bro, Shabbat Shalom. Hope everyone had a nice Thanksgiving. Thank you, Jenny. Hope you had a nice one. Melanie, did everyone else lose pick 2? I don't know. Judy Lenz, Shabbat Shalom. Patty Ann Malloy, back. And Diane Shadow, Shabbat Shalom. Oh, perfect sermon. Thank you. I appreciate that. Shabbat Shalom to everybody. Good Shabbos, and we'll see you all soon.